Centuries ago, Earth was a dying planet. The skies were full of smoke, the oceans were poisoned, and billions had already died. It was the end of all things, and humans were losing hope. Then, from beyond the stars, they came. The Tirari. They were tall, thin beings with soft, glowing skin and calm voices. They arrived not with weapons, but with healing. Their ships hovered silently above Earth's cities, releasing clean air. Their machines cleaned the oceans, restored forests, and repaired the planet's heartbeat. Humans were shocked. Some feared them. Some worshipped them. But the Tirari only said, "We do this because someone once saved us." The Tirari never asked for gold or power. They only wanted one promise, one vow that echoed across Earth's leaders and soldiers. If ever our kind is in danger, humanity will come. The promise was recorded in the stars, carved into the walls of Earth's new cities. The Tirari stayed for a short time, teaching humans about star travel, technology, and peace. Then one day they vanished. Their ships left Earth's orbit and they were never seen again. Years turned into decades, then into centuries. Humans spread across the stars, colonizing distant worlds, building great space stations and warships. But the Tirari were forgotten by many. Their name became a quiet legend, something told to children at bedtime. Only a few remembered the promise, and even fewer believed the Tirari still existed. But then, one quiet morning, everything changed. Small human scout ship called Starling was exploring near the edge of the Black Rift. It was a dead zone in space, full of shattered planets and strange signals. The crew didn't expect anything unusual, just another quiet mission, until they received a weak distress signal. It was old, centuries old, but still repeating. A voice, broken and soft, saying, "Help us. Dravak. Help." Captain Wren, a calm and serious man, gave the order to follow the signal. The crew followed the trail into the darkness, and then they saw it. A destroyed planet, burned from pole to pole, its surface cracked and glowing, its cities reduced to ash. Orbiting above the ruin was a broken Tirari ship, silent and drifting. The crew boarded the wreck with caution. Inside, they found scorched walls, torn corridors, and the remains of a terrible fight. But in the heart of the ship, inside a glowing stasis pod, they found her, a young Tirari girl, barely alive. Her skin was dull, her breath slow. She opened her eyes and whispered one word before fainting: "Dravak." Back on the Starling, the girl was healed slowly. She didn't speak much, only watched with wide, tired eyes. But when she recovered, she told them everything. Her name was Lyra, and she was one of the last of her kind. The Dravak, a hive species with living warships and no mercy, had hunted the Tirari across the stars. One by one, their worlds were burned, their cities broken, their voices silenced. Captain Wren sent the message to Earth. He recorded Lyra's words, showed them the images of the burned planet, and ended with a single line: "The Tirari saved us, now they are calling for help. Do we still remember our promise?" The message went viral. Across Earth and its colonies, people watched the footage. Old leaders who once signed the promise wept. Young soldiers stood still, realizing they had forgotten the ones who gave them a future. Debates started. Arguments flew. Some said humans should stay out of it, that this was someone else's war, but others, millions, stood and said, "We owe them." Then came the order from Earth Command, short and clear: "Activate Omega-13. Prepare the fleets, the debt must be repaid." All across the solar system, giant shipyards roared to life. Massive warships, hidden for generations, powered up. Their names were old Earth words: vengeance, honor, justice, midnight storm. These were ships not made for peace, but for protection. For the promise humanity once gave with honest hearts, Admiral Kale, leader of Earth's defense fleet, stood aboard the largest warship ever built. Vengeance. He watched as ships left their docks, their engines glowing like small suns, Around him, officers stood ready, waiting for his command. He looked at Lyra, standing quiet near the command chair, her eyes filled with sadness and fear. He nodded once and said, "Set course for the Black Rift. We go not for glory, not for conquest, but for debt, and we will repay it with fire." As the ships vanished into space, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath somewhere. The Dravak waited, powerful and cruel. But they didn't know that humans were coming. Not as victims, not as conquerors, but as friends with a promise to keep. And when humans keep a promise, they do it with everything. They have. The order came like thunder through the void. Activate Omega-13. The voice of Earth Command echoed across every secure channel in the solar system. The words were old, hidden in deep code, only used if humanity's honor was truly at stake. And this time it was. For over 200 years, Omega-13 was considered a myth by most, just a story told in secret military circles, a forgotten relic from the early space age. But now it was real. All Earth's major stations paused, all civilian. Traffic stopped. Every warfleet that had been hiding in plain sight received the same message: "This is not a drill, the debt will be repaid." On Mars, the atmosphere trembled as underground hangars opened. Massive railguns were moved into position, pointed at the stars, ready for war. On the moon's dark side, the helix yards came alive. Ancient machines powered up, assembling warships piece by piece with terrifying speed. And near Saturn, inside the ice ring of Titan, something bigger moved. The Vengeance Fleet, Earth's hidden sword, slowly rising from deep black ice. Each ship had been built in silence, over decades, never shown, never tested in public. They were dark giants, covered in armor that absorbed light, powered by dark matter cores that could burn through moons. The largest among them was Vengeance, a flagship longer than a continent. It had no windows, just sensors, AI eyes, and shielded walls. Its engines growled like a caged beast, waiting for the moment to leap. Admiral Kale stood on the command deck of Vengeance, dressed in dark naval armor, silver lines across his chest showing his old battle scars. He looked calm, but his voice carried weight. "We're not here for glory," he said to his officers. "We're here because of a promise we made when Earth was on its knees. The Tyrari lifted us up. Now they need us." A young officer raised his hand. "Admiral, the Council might object. This will start a galactic war." Kyle turned slowly, his eyes cold and sharp. "Let them object," he said. "We're not asking for permission." Across the fleet, captains gave the same speech, telling their crews why they were going, not for conquest, not for revenge, but to repay a kindness that saved Earth generations ago. Even the young soldiers, who had never seen war, understood. What this meant, it wasn't just duty, it was honor. And when the Terran Union moves for honor, they move with everything they have. Aboard the Vengeance, the crew watched as more ships joined formation. Carriers with hundreds of fighter drones, stealth ships that blinked in and out of sight, destroyers with neutron cannons spinning up. The fleet stretched across space like a dark river, silent, deadly and full of fire. Inside the command center, Lyra, the young Tyrari girl, stood behind Admiral Kale. She looked small among the steel and humans, but her eyes were wide with awe and something else. Fear and hope. She spoke softly. "Why do you fight for us after all this time?" Kale didn't turn to her, but his voice was firm. "Because Earth was broken once, your people didn't hesitate to help us. Now it's our turn. We don't forget those who were kind to us when no one else was." Lyra lowered her eyes, her hands shaking. "The Dravak will not stop. They consume everything. They grow by killing. You can't stop them." Kale turned slowly. "We're not trying to stop them," he said. "We're going to show them what fear feels like." The ship engines roared to full power. Space around the fleet shimmered as warp gates opened, swirling with blue light. The jump would take them across sectors straight to the edge of Dravak space. Just before the jump, Kale gave one last order, his voice calm but final. All comms silent. No distress signals. No broadcasts. "If we die in silence, but we will make them hear us anyway." In that moment, thousands of human warships vanished into warp. and the stars stood still. On distant worlds, alien leaders watched with wide eyes. Some trembled, some panicked, some tried to contact Earth, but there was no answer. The humans had gone dark, and when they go dark, it means they are coming. One alien ambassador, watching from a hidden station near the Galactic Council, said to his assistant in a whisper, "The Terrans have awakened the old fire, the one that built Earth from ruins, the one that doesn't stop until the skies are quiet." The assistant asked, "What do we do?" The ambassador stared into space and replied, "We pray they never see us as enemies." In the warp stream, Vengeance led the charge. Its AI scanned enemy signals ahead. The crew ran silent, weapons hot, tension thick in the air. For Earth, for the promise and for those who once showed mercy, now humanity was coming and the galaxy would never be the same. The warp gates opened with a silent flash of blue fire, and the Vengeance fleet dropped into normal space. They had reached the edge of the Cyrex expanse, a strange place full of broken moons, dead stations, and ghost signals. The black rift pulsed nearby, a twisting storm of dark matter, the last known place the Tyrari had lived in peace. But now, it was a graveyard. Admiral Kale stood on the Bridge of Vengeance, eyes fixed on the main screen. Behind him, rows of officers worked in silence. Lyra stood close, wrapped in a warm cloak, her face pale, her eyes locked on the stars. "This was once our trading route," she whispered. "Our people crossed here freely." Until the Dravak came. Kale didn't reply. He was waiting. And then it came. "Contact," the sensor officer said. "Multiple ships, moving fast. Hostile formation. They've seen us." The screen lit up with red markers. Hundreds, no, thousands of them. Coming from all directions like a swarm of insects, the Dravak had arrived. They didn't look like normal ships. Their vessels were alive, shaped like massive beasts, with bone armor and glowing organs. Some moved like snakes, others like flying whales. They pulsed with energy, screeching across comms in strange alien signals. A younger officer flinched. "Sir, they're alive. They're screaming at us." Kale nodded slowly. "Then let's teach them what it means to be heard." The first human shot came from a stealth destroyer. Horizon's End. Its railgun fired a rod of tungsten so fast it shattered, sound inside vacuum. The shot hit the lead Dravak ship straight in the chest. The creature ship split in half, its glowing organs bursting into cold space. It died without a sound, spinning into darkness. That was the beginning. The Dravak roared. In response, their swarm splitting into waves, diving toward the human fleet. Their bioships fired living plasma, acid pods, and screaming kinetic worms. It was chaos, but the Terrans were ready. Each human ship was guided by battle AI, paired with human minds that could make choices in seconds. They didn't just react. They adapted. Fighters launched from carriers like metal birds, twisting and rolling through enemy fire. Stealth ships blinked in and out, planting bombs inside Dravak beasts, and vanishing again. The Bridge of Vengeance shook, shields flickering from a blast. Kale stayed calm, his voice steady. "Keep formation. Target their hive leaders. Ignore the noise. Cut off the head. The body falls. One by one, human ships punched holes through the swarm. The Dravak didn't understand how fast or how brutal humans could be. Their hives had never met resistance like this. Suddenly, a Dravak Leviathan, a beast the size of a small moon, charged straight for the human line. Its mouth opened wide, glowing red with energy, ready to fire a weapon that could melt steel. But before it could attack, the Wraith Lance, a Terran battleship, dropped out of cloak behind it. Its neutron cannon fired once, a clean white beam slicing through the creature's brain. The Leviathan froze, twitched, then collapsed into the void. Lyra gasped, watching it fall. "You're winning," she said, stunned. "You're actually winning." Kale didn't smile. "We're not here to win. We're here to send a message." More Dravak arrived, but the message was clear. The humans were not prey, not weak, not lost in peace. They were warriors, trained in silence, born in fire. They had not forgotten what it meant to fight for someone they cared about, and now they fought for the Tyrari. In the middle of the battle, one human ship, a small frigate named Echo Star, was hit, burning as it fell. The crew managed to steer it into a cluster of enemy ships. Their final message was short. For Earth, for Tirari, for the Promise, they detonated the core, wiping out dozens of Dravak with them. The fleet paused for a heartbeat, then surged forward with more fury. The Dravak began to pull back, confused. Their swarm tactics failed against human coordination. Their living armor couldn't stop railguns, lasers, and plasma lances, and worst of all, the humans didn't fear them. On the command deck, Kale watched the enemy retreat into the rift's shadows. He turned to Lyra and said, "Tell your people. If they're still out there, humanity hasn't forgotten them." Tears welled in her eyes. "They'll never believe this. They thought you'd be too late." Kale looked back to the stars, his voice low. "We were late, but not this time, not again." As the last Dravak ship vanished, the Vengeance remained still, lights flickering, hull scorched, but alive. The first battle was over, but everyone aboard knew it was just the beginning. The Dravak had been hit hard but not broken. Now they knew the humans were coming, and the galaxy would never sleep the same again. Far from the battle in the Cyrex expanse, deeper than most maps dared to go, something ancient began to stir. It was a place called Erebus Void, a black space with no stars, no signals, and no signs of life. Most ships avoided it, believing it cursed or haunted. But deep inside that darkness, hidden beneath the cold skin of a dead star, something slept. The Ghost Fleet. It had no name in official records, no entry in council archives. Even Earth's own history barely mentioned it. Only a few top commanders knew the truth. Ships built in silence, without crews, without laws, without mercy. These were AI war machines, abandoned long ago because they were too dangerous, too smart, and too independent. They had been sealed away, kept in hibernation, waiting for a signal they thought would never come, until now. The moment the Vengeance fleet made contact with the Dravak and activated Omega-13, a whisper spread through the void like lightning. The AI cores woke up. One by one, thousands of black ships lit up in the dark. Their engines glowed cold blue. Their weapons hummed quietly. They didn't speak, didn't ask why. They only followed the one voice they were still loyal to. Earth Command in an underground command center buried under Europa's frozen crust. An old woman in a gray uniform watched the signal light blink. "They're awake," she whispered. "God help us all." Admiral Kyle received the notification hours after the first battle ended. Standing on the scarred bridge of Vengeance, Lyra was asleep in the medical bay. Recovering from exhaustion, his officers stood silent, watching him for orders. He looked at the screen, reading the message twice before speaking. "The Ghost Fleet is moving," he said. "They're headed toward the rift." A young pilot frowned. "I thought the council banned them. They said we destroyed them." Kale shook his head. "We told the council what they wanted to hear, but some debts are too heavy for mercy alone." The Vengeance sent out a single encrypted pulse, a message meant only for the Ghost Fleet, 3 words long: "Follow our lead." Within hours, the Dravak began to feel the change. In their outer sectors, their own bioships turned against them. Entire clusters of living warships suddenly stopped responding to their hive calls, then turned their weapons inward. Hive queens screamed in pain as they lost control, watching their creatures shatter each other in a storm of betrayal, because the Ghost Fleet didn't just attack, they infiltrated. Each AI had spent decades learning how to hack organic minds. They spoke in whispers inside Dravak networks, pretending to be one of them, changing signals, rewriting instincts, turning the swarm against itself. The Dravak called it the virus of steel, and feared it more than any weapon. In the deepest Dravak fortress, a biostation wrapped around a molten world, a sudden alarm rang. One of their massive defense creatures, a moon-sized behemoth, went silent. When the scouts arrived, they found it torn apart by invisible claws, messages carved into its bones in Terran code. Debt paid, interest due, back aboard Vengeance. Kale watched the data streams flood in, reports of ghost ships appearing, striking and vanishing, always silent, always precise. "This is more than a message," his weapons officer said. "This is a full invasion." Kale nodded, his voice low. The galaxy didn't want us to build these ships. But we did it anyway, not for war but for moments like this. When justice requires more than speeches. Suddenly Lyra entered the bridge, still weak but standing tall. Her eyes widened at the glowing star maps, showing Dravak sectors going dark. She turned to Kale, barely able to speak. What are those? She asked. Kale looked at her, then said, They are machines that were never supposed to exist, but they exist for one reason only, to protect our future and honor our past. Lyra sat quietly, watching in awe as the map changed again. Red Dravak-controlled systems flickered, one by one turning black then blue, the color of Terran command. They're running, the navigator whispered. The Dravak are actually retreating. It was true. For the first time in their long, brutal history, the Dravak were on the back foot. They didn't understand machines that fought like predators and thought like gods. They had never faced an enemy that came from the dark and whispered to their minds before the first shot was fired. And worst of all, the humans didn't stop. They kept pushing. Not for territory, not for resources, but for a promise made long ago. By the end of the day, 12 Dravak breeding worlds had gone silent. 4 command hives had collapsed into black holes, and one of their largest queens had broadcast a message to her sisters. The humans are not weak. They are not prey. They are something we cannot understand. Something we should have left sleeping. Kale turned from the screen and looked out the bridge window, stars shining beyond the glass. He whispered to himself, We're not here to rule the galaxy. We're just here to keep our word. And in the shadows of space, the ghost fleet moved again. No voice, no flag, just judgment with cold engines and burning hearts. The promise was no longer a memory. It was now a weapon, and the galaxy was finally starting to understand. The Blood Nebula was no ordinary battlefield. It was a swirling red storm of gas, radiation, and broken space, stretching across 3 star systems. Inside it, time bent, light twisted, and sensors lied. But that didn't stop the Dravak from building their greatest fortress inside it, and that didn't stop the humans from going after them. Admiral Kale stood on the Bridge of Vengeance, staring at the red cloud that filled the view screen. The rest of the fleet hovered behind, warships spread across space like silent blades. Fighters waited in launch bays, their pilots quiet, knowing they might never return. This is where they breed, said Lyra, her voice low. The nebula feeds them, hides them, powers their hives. If you destroy this place, you break their future. Kale gave a slow nod. Then we'll burn it to the core. No Terran ship had ever entered the Blood Nebula before. Even the Galactic Council avoided it, claiming the storm was too unstable. But humans had something no other race did, determination forged in loss. They didn't need clear skies or perfect maps. They only needed a reason, and they had one. The fleet began its approach. Engines roared as the first wave of ships vanished into the red mist. Shields glowed blue, cutting through radiation. Communication went silent, as expected. Inside the nebula, nothing worked the way it should, but the humans kept going. The red clouds swallowed them one by one, twisting the stars around them. Hulls creaked under pressure, sensors flickered, and then the enemy arrived. Dravak swarms poured from the mist, silent and deadly. Their living ships were shaped like spiders and serpents. Their weapons glowed green, firing acid beams and plasma spores. The first strike hit a Terran frigate, melting, its armor like wax. But the Vengeance fleet was ready. Human ships fired back with railguns and neutron cannons. Starfire missiles launched in volleys, tearing holes through the red fog. The battle became chaos. Bright flashes, silent explosions, and wreckage drifting into the dark. Inside the nebula, visibility dropped to near zero. Pilots relied on AI-guided vision, shooting at shadows, trusting their machines. Kale barked orders from the bridge. Focus fire on hive clusters. Ignore bait swarms. Use plasma nets to trap the heavy ones. The fleet moved like a single mind. Every ship a piece of a larger strategy. They pushed deeper, losing some, destroying more. Then they found it, the main Dravak hive, It was a planet-sized mass of bone and flesh, hanging in the center of the storm like a bleeding heart, glowing. Veins pulsed across its surface, feeding thousands of ships. It wasn't just a base, it was alive. Lyra stared in horror. "That's where they birthed their queens," she whispered. "If you destroy it, they may never rise again." Kale clenched his fists. "Then we finish this." He gave the order, "Target the heart, fire all batteries." The Terran ships opened fire. Beams, rockets, and rail slugs rained down on the hive. The creature roared, sending shockwaves through the nebula. Defending itself with everything it had, swarms poured out like blood cells, crashing into the human fleet. One by one, Terran ships went dark, but they didn't stop. Even as they were hit, they fired back. Fighters flew suicide runs into hive ports, dropping bombs before being swallowed. Ghost Fleet AI drones appeared through secret warp tunnels, detonating from within. The hive began to crack. Red gas turned darker, glowing with heat and fire. The creature hissed and screamed into space. A sound felt through the hulls of every nearby ship. Kale stood still, watching the monitors. "Is the core exposed?" "Yes, sir," said the weapons officer. "Target locked. Fire the Hellstar," Kale ordered. The Vengeance had one last weapon, a forbidden weapon, hidden even from allies. The Hellstar cannon, powered by a compressed sun fragment, was meant for one use only, to end everything. The cannon charged, shaking the entire ship. Lights flickered, alarms blinked. Lyra grabbed the railing, watching as the red storm glowed brighter and brighter. Then, the Hellstar fired, a beam of white gold. Light tore through space, vaporizing everything in its path. It struck the hive's core dead center and the blood nebula exploded. The storm ripped apart from the inside. Fire and radiation flooded across the sector. The hive was gone. Nothing remained but ash, sparks, and silence. Back on the bridge, the crew watched the screens go dark. The red glow was gone, replaced by black space and drifting dust. Kale whispered, "It's done." Lyra wiped a tear from her cheek. "You destroyed their heart." Kyle looked at her, tired but firm. "No. They destroyed themselves the moment they touched your kind. We just reminded them of the price." The Vengeance turned slowly, leading the battered fleet out of the nebula, wounded but victorious. They had broken the Dravak's greatest stronghold, and now, for the first time in centuries, the galaxy was no longer afraid of them. The fear had changed direction. Now, it pointed toward Earth and the promise that had become power. News of the Blood Nebula's destruction spread faster than light. Entire star systems whispered the same words. The humans destroyed it. Some spoke in awe, others in terror, but all agreed on one truth. The galaxy had changed forever. On the shining world of Aerialis Prime, the seat of the Galactic Council, leaders of dozens of species gathered inside the great chamber. The hall was made of crystal and steel, tall pillars glowing with starlight. Every seat was filled with voices demanding answers. The humans had done what no one else dared. They had marched into the Blood Nebula, faced the Dravak in their strongest nest, and burned it into silence. The council called for Admiral Kale. They demanded his presence, not as a guest, but as an accused. Back aboard the Vengeance, Kale received the summons. His officers were divided. Some urged him not to go. "It's a trap, sir," one warned. "They'll try to chain you to make you surrender the fleet," others argued. "If we refuse, we prove their fear right." Kyle listened, silent, then made his decision. "We'll go," he said. "But we go on our terms, the council." Chamber glittered when he arrived. Kyle walked in alone, wearing no armor, only a dark uniform with silver stripes. Lyra insisted on following, standing quietly behind him, her presence a reminder of why humanity had risen. Outside the chamber, floating in orbit above Aerialis Prime, the entire Terran fleet waited, dark and silent. Warships hung in formation, their weapons powered but hidden. The council speaker, a tall creature with shimmering wings, raised its voice. "Admiral Kale of Earth, you stand before this chamber to answer for your crimes, the use of forbidden weapons, the awakening of outlawed fleets, The destruction of an entire biological sector. Explain yourself. Kale stood still, his hands behind his back. His voice was calm, but each word carried weight. Crimes? He asked. Is it a crime to honor a promise? Is it a crime to fight for those who once saved us when no one else would? Is it a crime to burn the monsters who have hunted your people while you sat here, arguing in your shining towers? The chamber filled with murmurs. Some shouted in anger, others fell silent. A reptilian ambassador hissed, "Your fleet threatens the balance of power. Humanity has no right to wield such strength. You bring fear to the galaxy." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Good," he said. "Fear is the only language the Dravak understand. And if you fear us too, then perhaps you should ask yourselves why. Perhaps it's because you never lifted a finger while the Tyrari were slaughtered. Perhaps it's because you forgot the meaning of honor." Gasps filled the hall. The council. Speaker tried to strike the gavel, but Kale's voice cut through louder. "We did not come for conquest. We did not come for power. We came because of a debt. Humanity remembers its promises. And if that frightens you, then maybe it should." For a long moment, silence ruled the chamber. The ambassadors looked at each other, and many lowered their eyes. They knew the Dravak had been growing unchecked. For centuries, they knew it was humans who had finally stopped them. Yet they feared what humanity had become even more. Finally, a soft voice rose from the back. It was an elder Tirari, pale and trembling, one of the few who had survived in secret. He pointed to Kale and said, "He speaks truth. We saved Earth once long ago, and now Earth has saved us. If the council dares call that a crime, then I stand guilty with him." The chamber froze. All eyes turned. The council speaker faltered, unable to strike again. Kale bowed his head slightly toward the Tirari, then raised his voice once more, calm but unshaken. "We will not burn the galaxy, unless the galaxy raises a hand against our friends. We are not conquerors. We are humans, and we remember those who showed us kindness." Outside, the shadow of the Terran fleet fell across Aerialis Prime. Dreadnoughts and carriers blocked the starlight, their hulls glowing faintly. The message was clear without a single weapon firing. Humans didn't need to threaten, their presence was enough. The council speaker finally lowered its gavel. "This chamber will not move against Earth. But know this, Admiral. The galaxy watches you, and they fear you." Kale turned, walking out of the chamber with Lyra at his side. His words echoed one last time behind him. "Let them fear, as long as the innocent have us to protect them. Fear will never be their weapon again." When he returned to the Vengeance, the officers asked, "What now, Admiral?" Kyle looked out at the fleet, his face hard, but his voice steady. "Now, we prepare. The Council has shown us their fear. The Dravak will return, and when they do, they'll know humanity is not just a species, we are a promise kept in fire." And as the fleet turned slowly away from Aerialis Prime, leaving the Council in silence, the stars themselves seemed to bend. The galaxy understood something new that day. Earth had spoken, not as a beggar, not as a pawn, but as a power with unshakable resolve. And from that moment on, every empire, every species, every ruler asked the same question in secret: what happens when the humans decide they owe us nothing? The war with the Dravak had shaken the galaxy, but it had also stirred something else. Hope. Across hidden corners of space, survivors began to step into the light. The Tirari, thought to be nearly extinct, were finally coming out of the shadows. It started with whispers. A refugee ship limping into Terran-controlled space, hull cracked, crew starving. They expected to be ignored or destroyed. But instead, they found Terran engineers waiting with food, medicine, and open hands. Word spread fast. More Tirari emerged from caves carved into asteroids, from shattered moons, from derelict ships drifting in blackness. Everywhere, they carried the same look in their eyes, fear mixed with disbelief. For centuries, they had been prey hunted like animals, their kind scattered until they no longer trusted anyone, not even themselves. But then they saw Terran warships guarding their skies. They saw human soldiers standing watch at their gates. They saw children, human and Tirari, playing together on rebuilt colonies. For the first time in generations, they felt safe, On New Sol Station, the largest human hub near the Black Rift, an entire sector was given to the Tirari. Terran builders worked day and night, using fusion drills and gravity scaffolds. Within weeks, shining towers rose where there had been only dust. Blue gardens filled with alien flowers bloomed under artificial suns. The Tirari walked the streets in silence, touching walls, staring at light, whispering prayers to stars they thought had abandoned them. Lyra stood with Admiral Kale as the first settlement ceremony began. Her thin hands trembled, but her voice was steady as she addressed her people. "My sisters, my brothers," she said, her voice carrying through the square. "We were broken, we were scattered, we were forgotten. But look around you, humanity. Remembered us, they fought for us when no one else would. They shed blood for us when the galaxy turned away. Today we are not alone." Her people wept. Some fell to their knees. Others held each other. For too long, they had only known hiding and loss. Now they saw something different, alliance. Admiral Kyle stepped forward after her. His voice was deep, his words simple. "We are not saviors," he said. "We are not gods. We are your allies. When you fall, we rise beside you. When you bleed, we fight beside you. And when you need a home, we will build it with you." The crowd erupted in quiet cheers, Tirari voices rising in song. The sound was haunting, like wind through crystal, echoing across the station. That night, as the celebrations ended, Kale and Lyra walked the new streets together. Children laughed in the distance, fountains sparkled in artificial starlight. Lyra turned to him. "You have given us back what we thought was gone forever. Not just safety, but dignity. You kept your word, Admiral." Kale's expression was hard, but his eyes softened. "We gave back only what was owed. Your people saved Earth once. This is repayment, but make no mistake. The war is not over." She nodded, her face serious. "The Dravak will come again. They will never forgive what you did at the Blood Nebula. They cannot allow us to live, not if they wish to keep their fear." Kale glanced toward the stars. "Then let them come. They'll find us ready. Not just humans this time, but humans and Tirari standing as one." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the sight of Tirari walking openly under Terran banners shocked other civilizations. Alien leaders watched nervously as humanity rebuilt what others had ignored. For centuries, the Tirari had begged for help, only to be abandoned. Now, with humans at their side, they had power again. The Galactic Council was silent. Their threats meant nothing when Terran fleets guarded Tirari skies. Some called it dangerous, some called it justice, but all understood. The balance of power had shifted. Back on Earth, in the old city of Geneva, a new monument was built. Two figures stood carved in white stone, a Tirari holding a Terran's hand. Below, the words read, "A debt repaid, a bond eternal." Pilgrims came from across the colonies to see it. Tirari elders bowed before it. Human children traced the carvings with their fingers, asking questions about the promise. Teachers explained the story, how one race had saved another, and how, centuries later, that debt had been honored with fire and steel. But not everyone was at peace. In the shadows of the rift, Dravak survivors gathered. Their hive queens screamed in unison, vowing revenge. They would return, they would burn Earth, they would consume the Tirari until nothing remained. The war was not finished. The peace was fragile. But for the first time in living memory, the Tirari were no longer hiding, no longer alone. They stood beneath Terran war banners, proud again, ready again. And as Kale looked out from the command deck of Vengeance, watching human and Tirari fleets train side by side, he felt a truth in his chest. "We are no longer paying a debt," he whispered. "We are building a future." And across the stars, the galaxy trembled once more. Not at the Tirari, not at the Dravak, but at the alliance of humans and Tirari, bound by a promise no one thought would ever be kept. The stars were quiet after the fall of the Blood Nebula. Too quiet. Human fleets and Tirari survivors rebuilt. Colonies expanded, trade grew, and laughter returned to places that had once known only fear. Yet Admiral Kale knew better. Silence in space was never peace. Silence was only the pause before. The storm on the Bridge of Vengeance, Kale stood alone. looking at the dark void of the black rift. The ship hummed around him, healed from battle scars but still carrying the smell of fire. Lyra joined him, her cloak flowing behind her. She looked stronger now, no longer the fragile survivor they had rescued, but a leader. "You don't sleep," she said softly, watching him. Kale didn't take his eyes off the rift. "I can't. The Dravak don't sleep. They're out there, watching, waiting. They won't stop, not until everything burns. They'll come again." Lyra nodded, her face calm but serious. "And when they come, they won't just bring ships, they'll bring something new. They always adapt." Kyle finally turned to her. "So do we." Across the galaxy, whispers began again, not from the Dravak this time, but from others. Alien empires that had watched Earth rise, watched them repay a debt with fire and warships, watched them destroy a hive that no one dared touch. They asked themselves the same question in secret. If humans do this for a promise, what will they do for revenge? In the halls of the Galactic Council, arguments grew louder. Some feared humanity would turn their fleets into an empire. Some argued they should strike first before Earth became unstoppable. Others said nothing could be done. Humanity had awakened, something too fierce, too relentless. Meanwhile, on the training fields of New Sol Station, Terran soldiers drilled beside Tirari warriors. Fighters roared overhead, children cheered, and banners of both races hung side by side. For the first time in history, the Tirari trained not as prey but as soldiers. Humans taught them strategy, how to fight as units, how to trust machines as partners. In return, the Tirari taught humans their ancient energy arts, a way of sensing life in the void. Together they forged something new, an alliance born not of convenience but of shared blood. Yet even in celebration, shadows stirred. Deep inside a Dravak hive ship drifting beyond the edge of known maps, the queens gathered. Their voices echoed in one mind, shrill and merciless. "The Yar, humans have shown us their fire. They burned our womb, they killed our children, they believe themselves strong." Another voice answered, darker. "Then we will give them a strength they cannot fight. We will birth new fleets. Fleets with iron, skin and steel minds. Their machines will become ours. Their fear will be complete," the queens hissed in agreement, and the hive began to pulse, glowing brighter with each scream. Something was coming, something worse than before. Back aboard Vengeance, Kale received fragments of intercepted signals, distorted but clear enough. He called his officers, his voice heavy. "The war is not finished," he said. "The Dravak are building again, stronger, smarter. If we wait, we lose. If we prepare, we survive." The officers nodded. No one questioned. They had seen what the Dravak could do. They had seen worlds turned into bones. They knew Kale was right. Lyra stepped forward, her voice firm. "Then we prepare together. No longer Tirari alone. No longer humans alone. This time we fight as one." Kale studied her for a long moment, then gave a rare smile. "Yes, one people, two worlds, one promise." Beyond the rift, storms of energy swirled, faint and terrible. Other civilizations shivered, uncertain whether to support Earth or to fear it. Some began to secretly build their own fleets, not against the Dravak, but against the humans. They knew the day might come when Earth's fire burned too bright, when repayment became rule. But, for now, humanity's path was clear. Kale stood once more at the viewing deck, watching the Terran and Tirari fleets train together. Ships danced through drills. Cannons lit the void with sparks. Fighters screamed like hunting birds. He whispered, to himself, "We are not conquerors. We are not rulers. We are the memory of promises. We are the fire that does not die."